time 167. We're continuing to talk about relationship skills. This week we're discussing being a gracious receiver. That's a term that I took from Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers. As many of you who have class with me know, I'm a huge fan of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And I really liked that term. He talked about that being one of the best gifts that we can give other people is to be a gracious receiver. And that comes through in a couple different ways. And I want you to think about a few different things. To me, that really means accepting things in a relationship in a graceful way, in a positive way, even when those things are challenging, even when it might be things we weren't really looking for. And that can be with things that we think are initially positive, and it can be with things that are initially challenging. For instance, it's important for us to be gracious when someone gives us a compliment, when someone is trying to extend a hand, when someone is trying to connect with us. And we think, well, that's probably an easy thing to do, to be a gracious receiver when someone's meeting us positively, but we don't always do it. Think about maybe the person who's outside of your friend group, who maybe socially you don't quite click with, who maybe even has some attributes that you find annoying. And that person maybe wants to talk to you, sit by you at lunch, tries to get in the conversation you're having with your group of friends. And we might think, like that's sort of annoying. We might not receive that person graciously. That's not to say that we can't set boundaries for people or that we can't stand up for ourselves, but it's important for us to recognize what's really going on. If someone is trying to seek our attention in a positive way, if someone is trying to be included in the things that we're doing, if someone is wanting to connect with us, we ought to look at that as a positive thing about ourselves. And it's important to be gracious under those settings, to accept that connection that's offered. And that's not to say we need to be best friends with everyone. And it's okay if certain people get on our nerves and things like that. I'm not saying that we have to buddy with everyone. But we should be gracious in receiving those things when people go out of their way to try to connect with us, because that can be a scary thing to put yourself out there. So to be a gracious receiver of people seeking those connections, and especially if people are complimenting us or giving us positive feedback on something, because sometimes we do that too. We kind of push that to the side. I'm guilty of that. Somebody compliments me about something, I'd rather just be like, yeah, no, it's fine. But that person's putting themselves out there to offer us a kindness. And we should receive that graciously because that's a gift back to that other person. We really gain power when we can graciously receive things that might be initially challenging or things we weren't really seeking to begin with. When obstacles show up in our lives, then we go, you know what? I'm going to accept this. I'm going to have radical acceptance of this situation, of these circumstances. I'm still going to hold my head up high. I'm not going to deviate from my beliefs and my values. I'm not going to let this undercut my character. I'm going to accept responsibility for my position in this situation. I'm going to control the things that I'm able to control. That's really receiving the hardships of life with grace. And I think I think we're drawn to that when we see examples of that in the world, when we maybe see a loved one who's struggling, or they have an illness and they're faced with some terrible challenge, and they don't lose their faith, their belief in their values and their virtue. We're drawn to that. It's inspiring to us because it's one of the greatest aspects of being a human being, that no matter how difficult things get, there is something inside of us that can't be taken away. And that, to me, is a tremendous form of grace under pressure, grace under fire. And we need to work for that. That's a skill that we can develop, is when something difficult comes along, or in a relationship when someone challenges us, say, okay, how can I receive this? How can I accept it? How can I stay true to myself? And how can I learn something from this? How can I gain something from this? Often initially with a relationship, whatever the relationship might be, we want the easy road. We want things to be flowery and simple. But in the long term, that's always not the most beneficial. It's important, for instance, for people to challenge us. Whether it's a teacher, a coach, a parent, even our friends, our teammates. We're better when people challenge us. People who perform at a high level in any endeavor, they want the truth. They want to be coached. They want to be challenged and elevated. That can be difficult, though. That can be uncomfortable. So we have to receive those things with grace. Those criticisms sometimes, that coaching, that redirecting, we have to receive that with grace because we know that might be most beneficial for us. That those lessons are important. Years from now, I don't think you'll probably look back at the people who, you'll look back at maybe people fondly who, were always nice to you. And I shouldn't say maybe even the term nice, but, often we don't look back and be like, yeah, this parent or this teacher or this coach, they always took it easy on me. They always made things so easy for me. They always did everything for me. They didn't challenge me. They were the best. That's rarely ever the case. More often, we look back, and even if we didn't maybe understand that person at the time, we look back and go, I think that person really cared about me because they challenged me. They pushed me. They wanted me to be something more than I was. They saw my potential and worked to help me discover it. Those are the things that I think stick with us. So we need to graciously receive when people are challenging us in a positive way. Not denigrating us, not bullying us, but challenging us. Challenging us to elevate us. So that's what we're talking about this week. And I want you to think about those situations, things that were gifts and lessons and compliments, and how we can receive those graciously, but also the challenges, the obstacles. How can we receive both things graciously? That's a tremendous gift we can give to ourselves and to others. Much love.